Hello, my name is Natalia Karina, and I'm the Vice President of Client Services at CBIZ Gibraltar. And today we're joined by our Senior Vice President of Workplace Solutions, Seamus Byrne. Hi, Seamus, how are you?
Hey, Natalia, good to be here. How are you doing?
Glad to have you on, doing good. And
Good.
Seamus is going to focus on the overall workplace solutions process that him and his team employ, as well as some of the ramifications from the pandemic and what our clients are facing and experiencing as they transition from the remote to the physical work environment. Seamus, I'm really glad that you're here and that we can talk about this topic. And without further ado, I say we just jump right in. So my question for you is that I know that you and your team are always really busy. And what are you spending most of your time on right now with clients?
A good question. I would say needs assessment. That's the first order of business on the workplace solutions side with our clients. Working to understand and analyze their workspace needs going forward, both short and long term. The pandemic is front and center in that effort, of course, as you mentioned, but it's not the only focus. We have many clients who may not have conducted a detailed needs assessment in some time, and their projected needs compared to their existing operation can be quite different. So for organizations who are, let's say, 6 or 7 years into their current lease and find that they have different needs for a variety of reasons. Obviously, some of those are related to the pandemic, but also just because of the natural evolution of business needs. Technology, the variety of ways that their teams are working together or should be working together, changing requirements for client-facing components, expansion, consolidation, acquisitions, and so on. So we've developed an assessment and programming process that hones in on these needs in a very practical way and enables us to determine that bottom line square footage requirement. Typically looking at projections 3 to 5 years out, as challenging as that may be these days, and comparing that then to the existing space and the existing operation. As I always say, it's not just simple math to determine the minimum possible square footage that an organization can be squeezed into. We're very focused on efficiency, but it's a matter of establishing the optimum square footage for that client. It's different for every business depending on the workspace types that are best suited to the business or to the various departments or teams. And it depends on conferencing and collaboration requirements, client-facing areas, training rooms, support spaces, and so on. So that assessment process is really the critical first step, and it serves as the baseline reference for everything subsequent to that. Market search, building selection, space planning, design, construction, budget development, furniture selection, and so on. And once we have this programming data established, our transaction team jumps right into the market search phase. So that's where our workplace solutions team is spending the bulk of our time right now.
Great, thank you. That was really helpful to know kind of what your process is like overall and not just in the pandemic. But the pandemic, which we both kind of mentioned earlier, how is that impacting clients and how are you assisting them with addressing their workplace issues that kind of arose given this new environment that we're in?
Yeah, there's been so much written about this topic and so much ongoing discussion that there's just a certain amount of fatigue, and sometimes it seems like it's just a lot of noise. It can be hard to distill exactly what the implications and solutions are for a specific business or a specific workplace on a very practical level. So at the risk of contributing to the noise and fatigue, I'll mention just a few things here.
I'm sure it'll be very insightful.
It really breaks down into short and long-term strategies. In the short term, for businesses looking to reoccupy existing space without significant reconfiguration or capital expenditure, there are a number of interventions that we've been assisting them with. Those interventions revolve chiefly around density and distancing. The first is population management and workforce staggering. We're seeing a consistent move towards a hybrid of remote and on-site presence. As an example, a work group may be scheduled to be on site for 2 days and remote for 3 days, and vice versa the following week. The result is that every other workstation or every other seat is occupied at any given time. So 50% maximum occupancy. Obviously, there can be many variations on this protocol depending on needs and capabilities and on the ability to be productive remotely. But the bottom line is that the space occupancy is about 50% max at any given time. If there are more private offices, that percentage can be higher. But if the space is mostly open office areas, then 50% is about the right number, I think. And again, we're talking short term here. Secondly, controlling how people move through the space, establishing one-way travel routes to reduce interaction and mitigate transmission in that way. And then implementing hands-free access to entry doors, bathrooms, break rooms, building lobby, elevators, and so on. Part of that may be a landlord responsibility, but we're seeing tenants implementing these to the extent that they can. The technology and the hardware components for this are not new, but there's a significant focus on these elements in the light of the pandemic. And then thirdly, collaboration areas, reducing capacity in conference rooms and other meeting areas. This could mean smaller areas are off limits, but it may be as simple as removing a certain number of chairs from conference room just to ensure that distancing actually happens. And then clear communication on these issues is critical so that everyone is on the same page. Protocols, given all the noise that's out there, and also establishing a robust cleaning regimen that's clearly communicated goes without saying, I think. And then in the longer term, everything I mentioned is relevant also for the longer term, but the bigger impact here, I think, is shared workspace. That really doesn't figure in the short term, but it can be a significant factor in the longer term. So beyond just reoccupying, we're helping our clients analyze opportunities to reduce square footage needs if remote work or a hybrid of remote and on-site is feasible for the long term. You know, this varies by organization, by department, by team, by individual. It's a matter of assessing the degree to which the workforce can be productive in any shared or hybrid environment. And there are other factors to consider that are somewhat less tangible: culture, mentorship, camaraderie, morale, professional development, and so on. So many moving parts.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really helpful in collaboration and camaraderie and being in the office. I know we all long for that. So our team is back, you know, not full time, but for the most part, and we are lucky enough to each have our own offices. So we're still being responsible and doing this via video, but we definitely kind of feel that. So we're experiencing that firsthand, everything you talked about. But in terms of some,
and I think it's you know, it's normalizing. We're just down the hall from each other, but it feels like the right place to be, and it's productive.
Definitely, I agree. And in terms of some of the takeaways, you know, from everything that you have experienced and everything that you've talked to your clients about, what is the main key takeaway you would think from all of this?
Yeah, you know, one of the questions that we get frequently is, what is the easy way to determine how shared workspace impacts the bottom line square footage need? Obviously, there are a variety of factors, as we've talked about, but there is a rule of thumb that can be used as a starting point, at least. If there's a specific percentage of the workforce that is projected to be capable of working remotely in the longer term, the square foot need doesn't drop in direct proportion to that number. We're finding that the square footage can drop by about 60% of that number. So for instance, if an organization identifies that 20% of the workforce can potentially work remotely, then we would expect the square footage requirement to drop by about 12% of the current total. So that's not universal, but it's a really good reference point, I think, to consider, and it's a good starting point.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Seamus. I think this has been really helpful and insightful, even for me, to learn more about your process and kind of what you do. So really, thank you so much for joining and making the time.
My pleasure. Thanks, Natalia.
Of course. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And if you have any questions for myself or Seamus, we will share our contact information below. You can always visit our website at seamusgibraltar.com, and we look forward to connecting with you. Thank you and have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye, Seamus.
Bye-bye.